All right, gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Blind Pig, courtesy of BGObsession.com. Message board for the fan, by the fan, of the fan, I guess. Please come on by, jump on in and have a conversation. We got some new members, actually, shout out to them. It's awesome. Before we go forward, I do want to say, unfortunately, we didn't bring this up last week, and I hate to start this off on a negative foot. But we did lose a member, brother Posse, unfortunately, to pass away. So I'd be remiss if we didn't at least give a hat tip to him. Rest in peace. We're going to miss him. Major member of the board, was with the board for a long time, and was an avid Redskins fan and supporter. And I think, I don't know that he actually carried on to the Commanders, but I believe he will be a Redskins fan in infancy.
I'll tell you, the amazing thing about that guy is he actually made his week one pick'em picks. Here he is, he's in the hospital on his last, week of life, and he's making his picks on the site. So that tells you what a NFL fan, what he was. And especially his screen name, Posse Lover. That tells you all you need to know. He went way back. So we'll miss him.
Yeah. So in memoriam, him and Doc, we'll keep them in our minds and chat and some other conversations on the board. But just wanted to get that out of the way and on to the bigger thing on football. I'm not gonna say more important, but at least the thing we're here to talk about. I guess we can jump right in this thing. I'll lay the floor out there, but I do want to present the most important thing. Obviously, what everybody's been talking about is the narrow victory by Silence is Golden in fantasy football. It came down to Monday night with a 2-point win over the defending champion of the BGO Ballers Fantasy Football League. So I'm just gonna toot my horn there. No, I'm kidding. Carson Wentz. I guess we can jump right into the offense and then we'll roll the defense. I'm interested in hearing you guys put it on digital paper what you thought of Carson Wentz. We've had some discussions on the board. There's actually a pretty lively one. It's been going on for about the last 48 hours. That has a lot of opinions going on about it. So I'm curious. Chime in. Let me know what you guys think.
So I feel like I kind of called it a little bit last week, and I rarely get to say that. But, we were talking about, I made the statement, I probably overstated it because, I usually do. But I made the comment that I wanted to see Scott Turner open up the offense and open up the playbook, and I wanted to see 40 passes a game, and some of them were going to be ugly and some of them were going to be electric, and I feel like that's exactly what we saw. He threw it to he had to throw balls to at least 10 guys, including running backs. We were using I thought he played really well. I went back and watched the first half last night because that was mostly what I was interested in, and I know how it ended. But he had some off throws, but pretty much any throw on the field, any area of the field, he had some spectacular completions. And I guess without getting too long-winded, one thing I thought about as the game was going on is, wow, man, how long has it been since I've seen a quarterback throw that kind of a ball accurately to a guy that was open in stride? It's been a long time. And I think that's exactly what we've been missing. And you could see that Scott Turner, you could see the offense, what it could be, this offense, just little glimpses of it in that game when it was going well. So I was very excited. It wasn't perfect. And the last thing I'll say is the fact that he screwed the pooch, and you have to know, like, every horrible self-doubt, negative feeling he's ever had in his life was like he was being pummeled with it inside his head after that second interception. So to come back from that and just man up, and he pretty much carried the team for those 2 touchdowns and the go-ahead touchdown and the win. So I thought that was, I would prefer that he not throw picks and have to make a huge comeback, but that was ballsy as hell, I think.
I totally agree with you, John. Carson Wentz, all he did throughout the entire offseason was listen to people and listen to the narrative about how he could not beat the Jacksonville Jaguars to get the Colts into the playoffs. And he faced some adversity on Sunday, by having some struggles there late in the third quarter, early in the fourth. But like you said, for him to bounce back like that, I think it sends a huge message to his team. And if there were any doubters still in that locker room, I think he has a lot of people now in his corner and a lot of the players on the Commanders rallying behind him. I was quite impressed with what he did. You know, at the end of the day, seasons from now, when you think back to Carson Wentz's first ever start with Washington, you're not going to remember the fact that he threw 2 interceptions. You're going to remember that great throw that he made to Terry McLaurin to give us a chance to make a comeback. And you're going to remember the clinching throw that he made to Jahan Dotson to win the game. It comes down to wins and losses, and he did a great job of leading us to victory. So I applaud him for that.
And I think it's important to remember, and I did not remember this, so hat tip to Paul for pointing it out to me. But this is, the first quarter on Sunday was still only Carson Wentz's like fourth quarter of live football in a Commander's uniform, right? With this offense against an opposing defense as opposed to on a practice field. And we all know there's a different feel between practice and a real game. Guys are actually hitting, the other team's actually trying to stop you. Not that our defense on the practice field isn't, but it's just a completely different environment. And Wentz had less than 2 quarters in the first preseason game and about a quarter in the second preseason game. And then he didn't even suit up for the third one. So, kickoff on Sunday was quarter 4 for him. It was quarter 4 for almost everybody in the NFL. You look around the NFL, I don't want to hear any bitching about Carson Wentz throwing 2 interceptions, one of which, by the way, was one of the most amazing defensive plays by a rookie I have ever seen in 50 years of watching the NFL. That interception by Trayvon Walker, you will not see a more athletic play by a defensive lineman this season. That was just brilliant play. And you want to lay that at Carson, then I don't think you understand the way the NFL's played. That's taken something away from Walker, quite honestly. If you lay that at Carson Wentz's feet, you're taking something away from Walker, and I'd hate to see that happen. But I got more than I anticipated, to be honest with you. But at the same token, I don't want to give Wentz credit for everything, man. Jahan Dotson made a great adjustment and caught a ball damn near blind in the end zone for that go-ahead score. And he had tremendous help from his receivers all day long. Not just catching the ball, but getting open. There were guys running open all over the field. Great routes. And the thing I think I keep hearing in the last 2 days from commentators is, look at all the sharp, crisp, clean routes being run by Redskin receivers. These guys are just doing a great job. So it was, to my way of thinking, very much a team win. And I said it early in the summer at some point in time that Wentz has never had a receiving core to work with like this. And maybe we weren't completely certain what that receiving core was going to look like. Samuel's been hurt. We weren't sure what we were going to get there. Nobody really knows what a rookie's going to do. Hey, guess what? The NFL's not too big for Jahan Dotson, guys. And everybody else on this, even Logan Thomas looked good coming back from an ACL injury. We didn't know we were going to get there. So there's a lot of credit to spread around here.
I think you're right, Bob. To put that interception, and I'll argue this till I'm blue in the face, because I've done it on the board apparently. That interception by Walker, I can't put that all on Wentz. I have heard the argument, he's got to know better. He's got to spike that. He likely has been told, don't think, turn and throw. The running back will be there. The longer he doesn't look and doesn't think, and faster he gets the ball out, the longer the defense is not crashing. You know what I mean? I watched the film and I shared it on the board, and somebody had posted an overhead view of it. It was very, very obvious that Charles Leno did not engage with Walker. I think if Leno so much as shoves pushes or does some sort of engagement with Walker, he doesn't get his hands out in time to intercept the ball. And if you looked at the way that the defense was lined up, Gibson might still be running. So I think there were multiple things that added to that. As far as an overall for Wentz, you guys talked about the Terry throw and the Jahan throw. There were two more that stood out to me. The one to Gibson on the first drive on the corner route down to where he caught it about the 3. You can't throw a ball any better than that. And he put it where Gibson could get it. Like, that is the Gibson that I've wanted to see for a year and a half. Get the guy out in space and let him work. He was a receiver. Now we have a guy who's got an arm who can put it there. The other
he
throw,
led him perfectly. He led him perfectly. There was just enough space for Gibson to get both feet down, and no way for any defender to get to that ball. That was beautiful.
The other one that had me cringe for a second was the one to Curtis Samuel between two crashing defenders that he just reached back and it just it was a howitzer. I mean, it was the defensive catch. There was no way Samuel wasn't going to catch it because it hit him so hard. But it was like one of those throws where you're like, you have no business throwing that ball there. But because of the arm that you have, you can get away with it. You can do it and successfully complete it. You know what I mean? So those were two more that stood out to me. He had some misses. The first play of the game, in fact, Jahan Dotson was wide open. And he just missed him. It was high. There was another one to Milne. It was high. I think I'm not going to write those off as that those are throws he can't make. I think a lot of that had to do with timing. To your point.
That's adrenaline, man. Those first couple passes, you could see him. I'm a big body language guy, so I was watching him come out on the field, and you can see he's wound pretty tight coming out there. And we see that a lot. You see that with a lot of quarterbacks, especially early on. I think he was just juiced up.
Right. And it was late too. But the one to Dotson was late. And I think if this is week 6, that ball's not late, because I think Wentz is that much more comfortable with live fire action of the playbook. And he's that much more comfortable with Dotson and Dotson's speed. And he goes into the next game knowing if they have that same play call, I've got to get my eyes around it a split second sooner. I mean, we're talking less than half a second between that ball being, Dotson catching that at the numbers and Dotson going out of not catching it because it's out of bounds. That's how quick things are, and I think a lot of people forget how fast the NFL is moving. And they say, well, you got to be better. You got to do that. You don't have time to think like that, so that's timing. That's where timing is going to matter. Same thing with the throw to Milne where it went off his hands. It was high. There was more timing. I think he'll settle. I think there were a couple. The touchdown to Dotson had perfect touch. That same throw to Milne or Dotson on the that out route are catches. So I think he had some warts, as people put on the board. He had some things that weren't great, but he had some things that were really, really good. And he had some things that we haven't had a quarterback wear our color uniform in years that are capable of making those throws and making those plays.
The one thing that I want to add and build on to what you're saying, Derek, is you mentioned some of his best throws of the day. And if there's one other one that I can add to that list, it was that 3rd and 8 conversion to Logan Thomas on, I believe, our last drive. But the thing that's really interesting about all those throws that you mentioned is that some of his best throws in the game happened in the most important moments of the ball game. So basically, when it was crunch time, he came through. And to me, that's super important. I mean, yeah, there were some flaws, there were some mistakes, but you weren't having those mistakes happen in the last 2 or 3 minutes of the ball game. And I think that that's really telling as well.
And he did it after making mistakes.
Yeah.
You go 7 for 10 on 3rd down. That's a lot of wins in a season if you have that kind of effectiveness. And the other thing I want to throw in there is we've talked a lot about how like we've got these hybrid players and it's hard to pigeonhole some of them. Like, are they wide receiver? Or are they a running back? And you really started to see that this week we're running Curtis Samuels out of the backfield. We're, we're hitting Gibson playing him more almost as a wide receiver than at times than a running back. So I think that's really exciting because what the hell does the defense do when they see that they can't just key on the personnel coming in on a given play now. They don't know what we're going to do. Curtis Samuels, and I know I swear this is the last pat on my own back I'll give, but I've been saying for a year that guy was electric in Carolina. He was absolutely electric, and you got to see a little bit of that. Like, and I know a lot of people were bitching about the dinking and dunking. Well, you know what? When you're dinking 8 yards and then the guy takes off for another 7 after the catch, that's a pretty effective weapon to have. So it's one thing to be dinking, throwing 5-yard passes to guys that can't do anything with it once it's in their hands. But with the players we have, I don't know who you would characterize. Maybe John Bates, because A, he may not catch it, but B, he's not gonna beat anyone downfield. But other than that, which of our offensive players would you not be scared of with their ball in the hands in the open field? I can't think of.
That kills me. People are like dinking and dunking. Okay, I don't care if the ball is in the air for 3 yards or 30. If you net a 33-yard gain, you net a 33-yard gain. It's scheming and playmaking that get you there to begin with. So I am not one that is worried about it, because there is a team that hails in Boston that has been kind of successful over the last 2 decades, and they're pretty good and pretty well known for their slot receivers, and they're pretty well known about putting the ball in the hands of their playmakers and letting them eat. Guys like James White and Danny Amendola and Julian Edelman. Those guys are not Deshaun Jackson or Randy Moss or, insert any deep super threat. Those guys are the guys who made the most. They could juke you out in a phone booth, and then they could make you, and they'll make you pay for it. So if we throw the ball to Curtis Samuel for 1 yard and he gets a first down, it's a successful play. How it got there, I don't really care.
I don't, people that gripe about that kind of stuff, I don't think quite understand the game. These pass plays are effectively run plays from a different point in the field. That's really what they're designed to be. I mean, this all goes back to Bill Walsh in the 80s, and at least 2 of us on this podcast are old enough to remember watching that come into existence in the late 70s and early 80s, right? I mean, Bill Walsh really created the idea of the short passing game to create yards after the catch, to put guys who could move into open space instead of trying to pound them between the tackles. Roger Craig was known a whole lot more for his pass catching capability than his running capability. And that's the whole idea of what Turner is doing for the most part here. And he's got a quarterback that can, that can execute it. But the key is the defense can't crowd the line. You look at the difference between what Turner was running last year and what Turner's running this year. There's not a great deal of difference in the plays themselves. What's the difference? Those safeties got it. Those safeties got to respect the fact that he dropped that on Terry McLaurin from 35 or 40 yards away in full stride going away. And it wouldn't have made any difference. They snapped that ball at the 50-yard line. That's a touchdown if they snap that ball at the 30. That's a touchdown if they snap that ball at the 10. It doesn't matter. Terry was going the distance with that particular football. And the defense has to pay attention to that, which opens up all that space underneath for guys like Samuel and Dotson and Gibson to make 5, 6, 7, 15 yards after the catch.
That was a pretty good bounce back game for a guy who's been in the doghouse, for 2 or 3 weeks. And I thought Gibson looked really good.
He did.
Yeah.
I had a couple gaspy moments where he had one hand on the ball as we're on that final drive. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah.
But he held on to it, so I'm not. I can act scared, but at the end of the day, he did he did what he needed to do.
I'll tell you what, he had 2 or 3 moments where the last guy managed to stop it, where he'd have been off to the races. Mm-hmm. There was that one where he burst through the line and the guy basically got him by a shoe. Yeah, and Gibson got up shaking his head because he knew if he could have just beat that one hand, he was gone.
Mm-hmm.
So before we get on to, I know we're going to talk about the Lions game upcoming, but let's talk about the defense, because I think we all kind of expected the offense to look pretty good overall. What'd you think of the defense?
I was very concerned with how we looked in the middle of the field. Christian Kirk had a pretty decent game. I believe he amassed over 100 yards receiving, and he was primarily used, I believe, in the slot throughout that game. We still have some severe deficiencies up the middle. That would be my biggest area of concern. In terms of, positives, I would say that Duron Payne had an absolutely outstanding game. He's kind of been a little bit of a forgotten guy, because a lot of us were toying with the idea of, hey, why don't we trade the guy in the offseason? But we're just starting to realize now, I think, with a lot of guys out on that defensive line, especially on the interior, that he's going to become a much more important player than some of us maybe anticipated in the first place. He was a huge reason as to why we were even able to make that comeback in the first place. 2 successive drives, he had a very impactful plays. He batted a pass down, which I believe forced the Jaguars punt. And on another drive, he ended up sacking Trevor Lawrence to get us the ball back. So, I mean, he had a monster game, and we're going to need him severely throughout the season. So, I think that was really encouraging to see. That would be my biggest positive. Again, up the middle, I'm really concerned going forward.
So Montez Sweat had a quietly pretty great game. I didn't realize that. I think I saw this morning that he led the league in week 1 in quarterback hurries.
Pressure.
Yeah. So I don't know if he had any sacks, but I mean, just in general, the pressure that we put on Trevor Lawrence looked more like a rookie in that game than he did all of last season. I mean, talk about missing wide open receivers. We could have been in some trouble if and again, I know it was the pressure. It just got to him, and he never had time to set and really feel comfortable all day long. Even during the worst parts of the game, he was still under a lot of pressure. So I thought that was really good. And I'm wondering if, we get Cameron Curl back, hopefully this week. He did practice today. So between him and the surprising Derek Forrest, we might be able to tighten some things up, over the middle.
I was gonna say Derek Forrest is a dog. That dude is a beast.
He's a 4th round, right?
John, you tooted your horn. I'm gonna toot mine, because if we go back to the preseason breakdown, I said he was gonna be our preseason darling that was gonna flash. He just waited 3 weeks to do it, I guess. So, but that guy looks like a monster. I think he's as overall as the defense, I'm scared, to be honest with you. I think they need to take the defensive playbook right now. They need to tear it up, and they need to rebuild it. We're playing 9 yards off the ball with a guy that was known to be a man-to-man coverage guy, and then getting mad that he gets beaten zone. Our best cornerback on the team is known because he's been one of the better slot corners in the league, and we're getting mad that he's getting beat on the outside. We got Jamin Davis trying to cover Christian Kirk. We got Cole Holcomb trying to cover Travis Etienne. We got Travis Etienne running free. If we didn't have the D-line we had and the good fortune of a couple of drops, this game it wouldn't have been even close. And I hate to be that way. But Etienne dropped a surefire touchdown. You know what I mean? So I think they need to go back to the drawing board. I think they need to revamp the defense and change it to actually take advantage of our skill. I did like the blitzing. I think we got a lot more pressure. I did like seeing it coming from anywhere and everywhere.
I thought the defense in the first and the last quarter was pretty good, man. I went back and looked, and I think we kind of got. I think what happened in the middle of the game, it was a lot worse than what happened at the beginning and the end of the game. So if we could play the way we played in the first quarter, the whole game, I think we'd have locked that game up all the way.
We were dominating them. It was literally 14-3, and it was like we went into some shell zone, prevent, don't give up too much to end the half. We want to keep a lead type defense, and it's like, well, if it's working, why change it? You know what I mean? Like, that's what killed me. And then the last 2 drives of Jacksonville, it was like the defensive line had to say, all right, we're not going to let Jacksonville win. And there's nothing anybody can say about it. Sweat was in the backfield on almost every play. Like you said, Payne had a couple big time plays. Derek Forrest had a couple huge plays. But the guys
I
that
hate that we lost Mathis, man, because I really
Yeah.
wanted to see what that guy was going to do this season. You know, I guess thankfully it sounds like it's not an ACL or an MCL. It's a meniscus tear or whatever, but he's probably done for the year. That's just a bummer, but I guess it's happened every year. It happens, right? To somebody.
Unfortunately. But I think our depth at D-line was once again proven. A lot of people didn't have a lot of faith in our D-line in letting go of Ioannidis and Settle. And while Wise is not Settle, Wise was making plays. He showed, you know what I mean? So I think our D-line is going to be okay. I am worried about the interior. We're going to be facing the next 4 weeks the next 3 weeks we face DeAndre Swift.
Maybe
Maybe
he's not practiced this week.
he's not. Oh well, that's new. I didn't know that. And the running back for the Eagles, it's escaping me.
Jalen Hurts is the name you're looking for.
Yeah, that one. That too. Yes.
That one too. Yeah.
Because that was the game I got down here. So I've seen both of those teams extensively. Thank you from Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, one of those things I found very interesting. You go back and look at the stats, guys that are missing from sacks and quarterback hits. And I didn't see either of them blitz all day long. And that's Holcomb and Davis. It looks to me like we're going to bring the blitzes from the secondary as opposed to the linebackers. At least that's what we did in the first game, right? Go ahead, Derek.
Not to interrupt you. Davis is an athlete, a freak athlete, right?
Yeah.
He's got speed, right? I mean,
that's where I was going.
I don't. I hate to. It makes me sick to even think this because I hate them. But I think, like, why aren't we taking notes from a team that you live near?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they not watching film on Micah Parsons and saying, how do we turn our guy into something that looks kind of like that? And I'm not saying the exact same thing.
I'm not sure Davis isn't at least as good an athlete as Micah Parsons is. Micah just had the advantage of playing linebacker for 4 years at linebacker U or 3 years at linebacker U, right? I mean, he's been in a pro style defense at Penn State since he was a freshman. He started since he was a freshman. And Davis basically has 1 year at the position.
Well, yeah. And we've seen one game. We've seen one game. It could look totally different the second half of the season.
No, well, it may look totally different this weekend against the Lions. You know, there's no telling. I mean, and I know Gibbs did this. We used to talk about Gibbs running plays in the first quarter to set plays up for the third and the fourth quarter. I am absolutely convinced that Gibbs ran plays this week to set up next week and the week after. He was thinking 2, 3, 4 weeks ahead, and he was running. He was giving defensive coordinators a look this week, and he knew they were going to bite on it so that he could run something next week. Who knows what I've been very critical of Jack Del Rio, and maybe I'm giving him too much credit, but you have absolutely no clue what's going on in these guys' heads and what look they're showing this week, thinking about who they're playing next week. And there's no, you know, maybe it was all part of the plan. And next week, all the blitzes come from Holcomb and Davis. I don't know.
If he does that, I will applaud him. I'm worried. I'm worried watching what an athletic quarterback and an athletic running back.
As am I. I was less. And for the record, I don't know if we're there yet or not, but as far as what we're talking about, but the Lions impressed me. Dan Campbell has a group of players in Detroit that don't understand the meaning of the word quit. And they're not going to quit. They are not going to lay down on Sunday. No matter how hard we come out and punch them in the mouth, these guys are going to play 60 minutes. They're going to play hard, and they're going to play to win. and they came damn close against Philadelphia. And people are making it sound like, it wasn't as close as the score indicated. I'm here to tell you guys, it was every bit as close. And Jalen Hurts' legs were the difference. Without Jalen Hurts' ability to break containment and run, Detroit wins that game. So this is not an automatic win by any stretch of the imagination, as far as I'm concerned, especially on the road in Detroit.
So there's some similarities between the Jags and the Lions. The Lions also only won 3 games last year. They were 3-13-1. They have a second-year head coach. They have first-time offensive coordinator. Let's see, Ben Johnson. It's his first year. He was a tight ends coach the 2 previous years for the Lions. And then they have Aaron Glenn, who's only been a DC. This is his second season as a DC. So they have, and again, not that matters. I don't know if it matters or not, but I think it's got to matter a little bit. So they have a lot of inexperience at coach. They did not win a road game. Of course, they're playing at home this weekend against us, but they did not win a single road game like the Jags last year. They did win 3 of their last 6. So I think Lions fans are probably hanging their hat on. They're turning the corner and they're starting to get it, and they almost won in week 1. I like Goff. I don't think Goff's got a lot of weapons, though. I just wanted to read off their injury list today. Let's go through the injury list real quick. So John Allen was limited. Cam Curl was limited today. Jamin Davis and Trey Turner. I expect all those guys will play next weekend. They're just resting them. Cole Turner, who we've been wanting to see at some point, he was full speed today. So we'll probably, assuming they activate him, we may get to see him in action. The Lions had 5 players who did not participate in practice today. One of their D linemen, their starting left tackle, Decker, their backup guard, I think it was the right guard, I'm not sure, and their starting center, Ragnow, did not practice today. And then DeAndre Swift did not practice. So they have some key guys that at least right now look like they might be iffy to play. Well, that might be a little bit of a break for us.
Yeah, I'm with Derek. Swift's a little scary, and I was watching him on Sunday. He was scary. 15 for 144. Granted,
right.
50 of those came on one play, but even if you take that one play out, you're still 14 for 94. That's more than respectable in the NFL. Those are great numbers.
Well, 15 for 144. Didn't he have 3 catches for another 35?
He had 3 catches for 31. Yes.
Yeah.
But 25 of those came on one play.
Yeah, but you're still talking about 18 touches for almost 200 all-purpose yards.
Yeah. And Jalen Hurts had 17 carries for 90 yards and a TD.
And who are the linebackers?
Wide receivers, they've got Shark and Amon St. Brown, right? I think St. Brown's probably their most talented wide receiver. So, I mean, they're not stocked at wide receiver. They've got some decent guys, but.
Yeah, but St. Brown is primarily a slot guy, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, so that's the guy that I think they're going to be looking at film this week, and they're going to say that's the guy we need to get lined up against the linebacker. I mean, I'm hoping if I'm Del Rio, I'm hoping they literally morph like a 5-1-5 hybrid package. You know what I mean? Like 5 down linemen, 1 middle linebacker, 5 defensive backs. Because we've got 2 or 3 guys that can be safety or corner. And if they roll a slot out, you drop Derek Forrest down and let him play man. Let him see what he can do. You know, instead of doing this zone shell and then the Swift is running all over the place, and I don't know. I'm just real quick. I wanted to look at. He did that against the linebacking core of Kazir White, T.J. Edwards, Hassan Reddick, but he's more of a pass rusher. Nakobe Dean. I think would we take the Philadelphia Eagles linebacking crew over ours?
Probably, yeah.
Probably, and he kind of abused them that way. So I hope we make some adjustments. Just let me put it that way.
Well, Goff threw it almost as many times as Carson Wentz, but he only passed for 215 yards. So they certainly weren't getting downfield in the air. And I didn't watch the game, but statistically, it doesn't look like they were racking up a lot of yards downfield. It was probably a lot of short passes. And
No, they weren't. But remember, Philadelphia actually has a couple of relatively decent corners too, right? Darius Slay and James Bradbury play in Philadelphia. So you're talking about wide receivers that aren't exactly household names against cornerbacks that are.
well, Goff's got it, but the other thing is Goff's got to have time to get it downfield, right? And they do have a very good offensive line. The Lions, from what I understand, is one of the strengths of the team. Their defense was pretty horrific last year. They were like bottom 10 across in every category. So I'm more worried about I guess I'm more worried about our defense than I am about our offense this week, which maybe that may be true for the rest of the year. I don't know.
The Detroit defense had a game a lot like our defense. They pitched a shutout in quarter one, and then they had two really lousy quarters that lost them the game. And then they pitched a shutout in the fourth quarter while they were chasing the game. And Philadelphia, I'll tell you, it's not like Philadelphia was sitting on the ball either. They were trying to put more points on the board because they could feel the momentum going away. And I mean, the announcers commented on it. Detroit just felt like there was a real possibility that they were going to, catch Philadelphia. And the Philadelphia offense was actually trying. It was not and the Lions just shut them down.
And to that point, Bob, I think it's really important that we do not give Detroit, who, let's face it, they've been a perennial loser year after year. It is imperative that we don't go into their house this weekend and give those guys any sort of reason whatsoever to believe that they can win that game. We need to keep momentum on our side. Again, they need to have no reason to fight. We need to get on them early, and we just need to do a better job of not only establishing a lead but building on that lead, which was something we were incapable of doing against Jacksonville. And one of the things that I was really concerned about, and I guess it goes back a little bit to our defense, coming out of both halves, like the start of the game as well as coming out of the second half, our defense started slow. Jacksonville moved the ball very easily under opening possession, scored points. They did the same thing after at the beginning of the third quarter. I don't understand why we come out sleeping defensively, and we did it at the beginning of the game. We did it at the half. It's something that we can't afford to do going into Detroit if we want to pull momentum away from them, because again, they're a perennial loser. Can't give them any reason to believe.
So this is the rest of the NFC East. I was curious to look at, because right now three of the four NFC. Surprisingly, Dallas was the only loser in the division, right? So Dallas is at home against Cincy. Eagles are at home against the Vikings, and the Giants are at home against the Panthers. So we're the only road team this weekend. But the Eagles and Dallas both have tough games, and I think the Panthers really should have won the game that game last weekend against the Browns. They got jobbed by the officials at the end of the game with kind of a phantom roughing call. But so they're no pushover. So we probably have setting aside that it's a road game, setting aside the any given Sunday thing, we probably have on paper the easiest game of in the division this weekend.
I think we're the only team I picked to win in the division this weekend. I think in Pick'em I picked everybody else to lose.
It would be really helpful to win. It always is, right? But especially this weekend.
I mean, not to look too far ahead, but yeah, because I think the Giants, just to do a little quick recap of the end, I think the Giants, we saw what the Giants are capable of if they're at their top and they have their best playmaker, Barkley. You know what I mean? So you wonder what the last 2 years of the Giants would be if Barkley had been 100% for 15 plus games. I don't think they're as bad as they've come across. It changes things for Daniel Jones, changes things for the offense. Philly looks to be for real. but you wonder how long it's sustainable. You know what I mean? We all lived the RG3 era. And while it was a hell of a lot of fun, defenses figured them out. Well, guess what? There's been 10 years since that season, and there's been 10 years of other quarterbacks like that can do what Jalen Hurts can do. So when are defenses going to figure them out? You know, the quarterback that Jalen Hurts is now a lot more popular than it was when RG3 was in the league. So I think a lot more defenses are suited, which is why guys like Jamin Davis get drafted in the first round, because they have that speed and the ability to cover. So in Dallas, you never can assume Dallas is going to suck. But
They looked bad.
They looked bad before Dak got hurt.
I know he did.
So there's a lot to chew on there for them. But if we can find a way to be 2-0 and either Philly or New York loses and we go into next week literally playing for sole possession of first place in the division. Not that it matters in week 3, but it matters. With a game on the other end of the horizon against what we believe to be a bad Dallas team. I mean, bring your lunchbox and get to work, because there's an opportunity here that we haven't seen in a long time.
There's a very real opportunity here. And I tell you what, in Dallas, it's very doom and gloom. It's very woe is me at the moment. And the sad part is it's not so woe is me about Dak. People aren't totally freaked out about the idea of Cooper Rush running the offense. They didn't look any worse with Cooper running the offense Sunday night than they did with Dak running the offense. And I think that's what scares people the most at the moment, is that, you know, CeeDee Lamb doesn't look like the number 1 wide receiver that everybody thought he was. Maybe he was just the world's greatest number 2 wide receiver because everybody was focused on Amari Cooper.
God knows we've seen that plenty of times.
You know, and I can't emphasize enough the loss that Tyron Smith was to this team the week before. He's one of the better left tackles in the league, and now he's done, right, for the season. He's just done. And Dallas didn't really have a good replacement to roll out there. And so the guy that went out there to take the snaps, and I assume the same guy that will be taking the snaps in the next couple of weeks, is raw. And you saw what Tampa Bay did to the poor guy. So yeah, there is a real opportunity here over the course of the next 4 or 5 weeks to make some serious hay inside the division.
There's an opportunity, but at the same time, we can't afford to look past Detroit. I would hate if we go in there this week and we look past these guys because we know we have 2 division games on the horizon at home. It would be a real shame if we look past these guys by any means.
They can't look past it. Us 4 idiots talking on a computer can.
I'm trying to remember which one of them said it. It was either Disco or Bang on Twitter said, it's just a cry and shame that our win is against a non-division, non-conference opponent, and New York and Philadelphia both won against conference opponents.
Here's something to keep in mind, though. Detroit has not been favored to win a game in like a gazillion years. I don't know how many.
24 straight games.
So if anyone's getting reading their own headlines and believing them, all the talk this week is we should have won that game. We were the better team,
and now we're the favorite.
And now we're favored at home. If anyone's going to come into this game like feeling their oats, it's probably the Lions, not us.
They're actually favored against us. Interesting.
Yes.
They're favored by 1.5, and the old theory is the home team gets 3 straight up. So
yeah,
the theory there is neutral field. It's probably 1.5 the other direction. At home, we're probably favored by 4.5.
How much higher on that preseason ranking was Jared Goff than over Carson Wentz?
I hope everybody.
Yeah, I still think that line is totally disrespectful. We got to prove it, but here's the thing, man. This year, it's all about the coaching. If we can't go on the road and beat teams that we are more talented than and have more experienced coaches than that's just pathetic coaching. So, I mean, they pulled a tough
Well,
one out.
and the other thing
they
is,
got to do it.
the other thing is a lot of people handicap their wins and losses by the quarterback. Right? How long has it been since we've legitimately had the better quarterback the first 2 weeks that we've been playing? I would be hard pressed to find anybody to tell me that in 2022, not building a team, not going forward, but in 2022 that you would rather have Trevor Lawrence or Jared Goff over Carson Wentz. Now, if you want
a lot of people would say they'd rather have Trevor Lawrence. I don't know that.
I'm not talking about for the long term. I'm talking about this season. If you had
I still think a lot of people would take. I still think a lot of people would take the hype.
That's possible, but if you wanted, we can do it real quick. I mean, we've been on this a little bit, but real quick, let's run down Washington versus Detroit. Quarterback, would you rather have Wentz or Goff?
Wentz.
Wide receiver, would you have ours or theirs?
Oh, definitely ours. Good God.
Running backs, would you rather have ours or theirs?
Ours.
If Robinson were playing, I would say ours hands down. But Swift is
I think that's a lot closer than the wide receivers, but I think, yeah. Paul, you haven't answered one question.
No, I would definitely take Washington for running backs as well. One thing you have to remember is we talked about all these weapons that we utilized in week 1. We never even made a peep about JD McKissick.
Yeah.
And that's a guy that if we get him involved in the game, he can be extremely dangerous. So in terms of depth, I would say we have the edge at the running back position.
Offensive line, Washington's are. You know what? I'm not going to go that deep in the weeds because I don't think we know Detroit's offensive line well enough to answer that. But I think we're confident in our O line, right?
Mm-hmm.
Charles Leno, I think he played 100. He played 100% of the snaps. He gave up 0 quarterback pressures. I think I saw that stat. Tight ends.
By the way, your boy Trey Turner played pretty well, right?
Did he? Yeah, I did. I didn't see the advanced stats. I know we gave up a couple pressures. Norwell apparently had not a very good game. But my point in this whole exercise is that I think we can go roster up top to bottom. I think we would take ours over theirs. And it's been a long time since we've been able to say that.
It's a young team, but we're further along. If there's an arc to going from suckage to perennial playoff contender, you got to think we're halfway there. And you cannot in any way argue that Detroit's their coach is probably playing for his job this year.
Who, Campbell? I don't know.
I'm just saying, if they have another 3 or 4 win season,
yeah,
and he's also one of those kind of raw gung ho coaches. And sometimes that's really great when you haven't played a game, but when you start tanking, then all of a sudden that doesn't usually go over so well.
Yeah, so. that shtick gets kind of old kind of quick. So
who's going to win the game?
I think I got it right last time. Did I? I think, again, not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty sure I said I think we're going to end up coming. We shouldn't dominate them, but it's going to end up being a nail biter. We're going to score late and end up winning.
We need to bring our predictions from the previous week to this thing, because I know I predicted a win, but it'd be nice to know what we actually said, the previous time. So
I think we end up winning. Late field goal wins it.
So I think what we're going to see this week is we're going to force turnovers. Like
I hope so, man. I meant to talk about that.
2 picks. Our defensive backs who we beat on all the time are gonna, because of the pressure we're going to be able to put on them, we're going to get some picks. We had a couple this past week where the ball hit and floated up. It's like you could see it just almost there, but it didn't work out. But I think we're going to get a couple of picks and win by a touchdown or so.
I hope so. That's something we didn't talk about. Derek Force had the interception, but we are not we're not forcing turnovers. We need to force turnovers to be successful. We gave up 3 and we won the game. We were -3 in the turnover column and we won the game. That doesn't happen in the modern NFL.
No, not very often. I think this is going to sound weird. I think we win, and it's close, but it feels better than this last week. I mean, I there wasn't a one of us that wasn't sitting there watching the scoreboard in the fourth quarter going, same old Washington. Here we are again, same old Washington. I don't think we say that this next week. I think we control the game better and we don't have the sloppy moments, but I also don't feel like we're going to give up more than we should, but we aren't going to be chasing the game in the fourth quarter. We're going to feel better about it, if that makes sense. Still a tight game, still under a touchdown.
So I didn't want to answer this question, and you probably saw a little bit of my hesitation in not wanting to go, but I'm going to be the one guy who is going to be the Debbie Downer and say that we're not going to win this week. I don't have a good feeling about it. I mentioned it earlier. I don't like our ability to cover the middle of the field in a pass game, and they got two pretty good targets in TJ Hawkinson and Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I think are going to cause us a few fits this weekend. And for the most part, Carson Wentz was pretty comfortable in the pocket last week. Credit to our O-line for the most part for, allowing him to stand in there, be comfortable, make some throws. I think Detroit's going to bring a ton of pressure this weekend, and I don't know if we're going to be able to handle it. That is left to be determined, but I just don't have a good feeling about it. And again, it's because of my concerns with our ability to cover the middle of the field on defense. So I think it's going to be tight. It's going to be close, but I don't think we're going to win.
So I'll say this: Aaron Glenn is going to have some big balls if he brings a lot of pressure consistently with the weapons that we have. And Wentz is a smart. I mean, I think Wentz knows under pressure to get rid of the ball, unlike Taylor at times last year. So that's the only caveat to that. They may try to bring a lot of pressure, but I think he can make them pay dearly if they do. Because who the hell's going to cover? I mean, they're not a dominant defense by any stretch. Who's going to cover all of these guys out that we have?
Yeah, especially one-on-one man coverage. You know what I mean? If we have Dotson, McLaurin, McKissick, and Gibson, let's say Dotson, McLaurin, Gibson, and Logan Thomas on the field that's 4 plus 6 down linemen and a quarterback, and you bring a blitz and you bring 7, well, you're going 4-on-4, and you're going to lose probably 3 of those battles. So part of me hopes he does it.
Wentz didn't. Wentz started the game not necessarily looking completely comfortable, and he had uncomfortable moments all throughout the game that we all saw, and we've attributed a lot of that to this being so early in his Washington career and so early in his experience with Turner's offense. He went 27 for 41 for 313 and 4 scores. That's got to scare some people if the man's not comfortable. Think about those numbers in the context of not being completely comfortable in the offense. Now project that to week 8. He's going to look better this week than he did last week. You can almost bet. And for all that Aiden Hutchinson was one of the top 2 picks in the draft, he's not the athlete Walker is. And I don't see him making that all-star defensive line interception. So, I have real concerns about our defense slowing down the Detroit offense. I don't have concerns about our offense being able to keep up. So I think is where my confidence comes from.
One thing that we did much better than the opponent in week 1 was we made far fewer mistakes. I mean, I know we had the turnovers. I don't view those as mistake. The one was a mistake that was a bad decision by Wentz. But Jacksonville was the one that kept bailing us out and killing themselves on drives with stupid penalties or unnecessary penalties. So I think that's going to be a big factor here. And can we play smart, and can we not be the ones making mistakes on the road? Here's the thing: we can never be comfortable predicting a win, right? Well, I mean, so just to get that out there, I'm never comfortable. I just go with what my gut is. So I totally think Paul could come back and pat himself on the back next week. But I do think this is I don't want to say must win because that's ridiculous, the second week of the season, but it would be a really important win if we could get it, because our opposition in the division probably has a tougher road to hoe, other than maybe.
Yeah,
I'll go there. This is a must win against this competition, John. This is a team. Somebody said it last week. Jacksonville's a team we should beat. Detroit is a team we should beat. We are not such a good team at this point in time that we can afford to drop games that we should win, because we're going to drop some games that are 50-50 games, and we're going to drop some games that we shouldn't win.
And we might win a couple that we don't have any business winning.
We might, but the point is, if we're going to get to where we want to be, a double-digit win team, we have to put the teams away that we're supposed to put away. Yeah. Although I guess you could argue that we're not favorites, so we shouldn't, maybe we shouldn't be putting Detroit away. But my guess is when we watch the pregame shows on Sunday,
there's gonna be a handful picking us.
Almost everybody. I mean, for all that we heard a lot of fuss about Jacksonville, I had the Fox pregame show on before they played. Every single one. It was 100% picking Washington, and I thought, well, shit, that's the death right there.
That's the kiss of death right there.
And then of course we won. But I wouldn't be surprised to see 100% on the burgundy and gold this next weekend too, for the same reasons. And a lot of those guys were very complimentary of Carson Wentz. So
I wish I had run the numbers, since I'm going to with what I'm about to say, but anecdotally, I feel like we're actually a better road team in the Rivera era than we are a home team. Like, I've never liked playing at home with Rivera, especially I think this is the first opener we've won, right? Since Rivera got here. Is that right?
No. We blew
we beat Philadelphia.
We blew Philadelphia out, and Terry McLaurin's coming out.
Again, I may be totally wrong, but it just seems like we've won more on the road since.
Here, hold on real quick while we're still recording. I can go last season.
At his fingertips.
Last season, we'll just run down the schedule real quick. Last year, at home beat Philly, at Arizona loss, at Cleveland loss, at home loss to the Ravens, at home loss to the Rams. Jesus, we started out 1-4 last year.
Yes.
Ouch. At the Giants loss, at home win against the Cowboys. That's cool. Always like those. At home win against the Giants. At Detroit loss, at home win against the Bengals. I don't know, John. That's 4 out of 5 wins at home.
Well, there goes that theory.
I don't know. But then we beat Dallas in Dallas. We blew them out 41-16. Yes, blew them out. That's Thanksgiving, right? No, wait, why am I on 2020? Hold on.
Yeah, because you were going back to the last time we won an opener, which was that season.
Yeah,
this is electric podcasting right here.
It is.
Yeah. We came prepared. We're kicking it out of it. Kicking it out, punting the coverage here.
That's right. Here's 21. Started with the Chargers at home. We lost. Then we beat New York at home. We went to Buffalo. We were never going to win that game. Then we beat Atlanta in Atlanta, lost to New Orleans at home, lost to Chiefs at home, lost to Packers at Packers, lost to Denver at Denver. Then 2 of the next 4 we won. We won 4 in a row, 2 at home, 2 away.
So just to add context, we just opened up against 2 teams that did not win on the road at all in an entire year. So in the context of that, I like our chances on the road against teams that,
I think there's something to what you said, though. I think we do play different on the road.
Maybe not, though. Who knows?
No, but I think we do, though. I think there's a different vibe.
It doesn't seem like, well, I guess we can say we at least win some on the road. We're not a total home team.
Yeah, we're about a 50-50 split last season.
Hey, all right. I want to change the subject for a second. I don't want to revisit something because I had a thought a few minutes ago. The defensive line had a fairly dominant performance this week. We fired our defensive line coach in training camp and brought in a new guy. Well,
Yep.
not a new guy. We promoted a guy and brought in Ryan Kerrigan. How much impact do we feel like that had? Anybody curious?
Big.
John or Mark or John, Mark, Paul, you pay attention to the coaching staff more than anybody else here.
I don't know what to say in regards to that. I just feel like over the course of that game, there came a point where that defensive line said, we need to take over the game to help us win this ball game. I don't know how much of it can be attributed to coaching. I think want to and talent took over at that point with that front four.
Okay.
I think there's respect, and Kerrigan's got street cred. I think the defensive ends coach has street cred. That's what I hear, with all of my NFL ties. I think both those guys have serious street cred with the players. To what extent that impacts anything, I don't know, but I don't think it hurt anything. I mean, how can they not respect Ryan Kerrigan? He knows. I mean, if ever a coach knew what the hell he was talking about when it came to the D line, how can you dispute that? So
that D line looked different. We haven't seen that kind of pressure in a while. And I'm not just talking about pressure blitzing, but Payne was in the backfield consistently. Allen was in the backfield consistently. Like you said, Sweat had the quietest leading pressure game of anybody I've ever seen. And there was one play. I don't know if you guys will remember it. I want to say it might have even been third down. And it was literally, let's just meet at the quarterback. It looked like a cartoon of people just punching as they went past. You know what I mean? Like Allen hits, Sweat hits, Payne hits, and then here comes Wise just to finish them off, or whoever was playing D, and it might have been Smith Williams. But guys were winning one-on-one battles. And hey, not to sound narcissistic or nepotistic or however you want to call it, it was really fun watching it go against the guy that we all agreed wasn't worth $20 million a year. I thought Matsko, I think it was Matsko. I think he had the line of the week last week where they said, this is the Brandon Scherf revenge game and blah, blah, blah. And his response was, I thought it was the Andrew Norwell revenge game.
I've never heard of a guard taking over a game yet, and I've been watching the NFL since I was like 7 years old. So,
right. But if I'm not mistaken, wouldn't John Allen be Brandon Scherf's guy?
Yeah,
I'd be hating that assignment. Scherf all week was going, I don't want to do this.
Right, and he knows what he's looking up against. Let me see. Well, gentlemen, we've put it on paper. I think Paul's the only wet blanket in the room that thinks we're not going to pull this thing out, even though I can't hold it against him because I think, I don't know about you, the other three guys on here. I think we all believe it is completely reasonable to believe that we're going to lose this football game.
But 2-0 for the first time in 11 years would sure as heck sound really good.
Yeah, as my respected old timer friend Henry would say, show me, right? I mean, we've been through this every season for pretty much the last 20 years, where we have a little glimpse of hope and then we get brought crashing back down to earth as fans. So until we start to see, like, what we all want to see, we want to see him take hold of a game and just not give the other team a crack to throw the door open in and slam it home and string some of those together. That's what we want to see. And then we can say, maybe we've turned a corner and maybe it's year 3 of the Rivera Del Rio era. And we are a good team, but until they do it, we're just talking on a podcast.
Yep. And the thing that, is we got to stop playing up to our competition and down to it.
Something you just said, at the rate this thing is going, it's not going to be the Rivera Del Rio era. It's going to be the Rivera Turner era, because Del Rio's not the outstanding coordinator on this team right now. After granted, it's just one game, But after one game, I know which coordinator is doing a better job. And for me to say that, it's got to be legit, because I was all over Turner's ass for the last 2 years, and not a fan, not a fan. I was a fan on Sunday.
For 2.5 quarters.
There was some progress to be seen.
There was some progress. Yeah, there was some real progress. So,
All right, gents, it's been a pleasure. Next
Thanks,
week, same
guys.
bat time, same bat channel. Hopefully we'll have this thing posted up and ready to go Wednesday night at about 11 o'clock. So if you're tuning in, please feel free to tune back in around that same time. It's been a pleasure, gents.
Night, guys.
Night.